And we're live. Welcome to another week, another episode of Touchline Hotspur with your all-star studded cast. We've got Owen with us today. How you doing, Owen?
Yeah, very well, very well. Just squeezed in a nice episode of The Mandalorian before the pod to try and gas me up a bit.
A little bit of Baby Yoda.
A little bit. A whole lot of Baby Yoda on that one. But...
Good. I've never seen it myself, I'll be honest. How you doing, Simon? Sorry.
Good, man. I'm good. Not bad, man. Tired, long week, but we move.
And Tops, how you feeling, man?
Yeah, good, bro. Happy to be back after missing the last couple of weeks. But yeah, everything's good on my end. Busy week, but happy to get into it with the boys tonight. So
Good. I think this week is a tale of 2-1-0s. Two definitely opposing 1-0s. Two completely different stories. But I mean, let's start with Owen. Let's start with the Burnley result. Can you take us through your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, the first half, that one was quite a fast-paced one. It felt very end-to-end. Like we were both just trying to play long ball. It surprised me that we kind of took that approach as to try and be, as opposed to just kind of being a little bit more controlled and measured, but it felt like we were just going tit for tat, 50-50, long ball to long ball. But I was pleasantly surprised at how he dealt with it, even early doors.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the half went on, it's like we did start to exert more control, but didn't create anything, which that kind of felt like the story of the game. I can't really remember a clear-cut chance. I saw we rocked up with Højbjerg and Sissoko back in holding midfield again. Sissoko's kind of crept back into the lineup as well, hasn't he? Like so many fans, he does divide opinion, and even amongst us, he divides opinion, and he's kind of crept in ahead of the kind of likes of Winks or Lo Celso maybe playing that pivot role. He did okay, but it kind of limits how much we can create, and we saw it was just going to be a defensive approach, or just kind of a more careful approach from Mourinho from the get-go. Mm-hmm. Obviously, while trying to be as proactive as we can. And man, like as the second half went on, I was expecting either Carlos or Bale, Reguilon. I feel like there was someone else, Lo Celso, to come off the bench, and he brought on Lamela. And it shocked me to my very being at first, but again, like I've got to say, we probably wouldn't have got the results against Chelsea, or maybe not even Man United, if he wasn't playing on shit housing. So
hold on, was that Lamela praise there?
A little bit, a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I have to acknowledge his. You can't really ignore his presence, can you? Really?
He's the ball roll,
and he kind of. Because he just does, he epitomizes what Mourinho wants from us, just to be shit houses, but be intense with it. And straight away, he's closing down spaces and pressing and stealing water and whatnot. Yeah, I'm all for it. I've never seen someone steal opposition water before, just so casually.
After such a shit tackle as well.
he poured half of it on his face as well. He didn't even
pretty
drink.
much, yeah.
One thing I feel like he needs to get into after his career ends is defensive coaching, because he needs to teach that tackling style to people, because he's actually very good at it. I don't know how, but he kind of half lunges brainlessly at times, but he always gets the ball, even if it looks a bit dangerous at times. He always gets the ball.
He goes on the opposite side that you're supposed to go on.
It's insane.
Proper weirdo.
I don't know if it's because it kind of comes onto his left foot or whatever. Sorry, Ira.
I was just going to say, like, he always seems to block the path of the runner somehow as well, if you get what I mean, rather than get the legs. It's almost like he's going for a professional foul, but somehow he just pulls it off. I don't know how.
Yeah, he could be a dark arts teacher at Hogwarts as well, maybe. Like,
I love him, man. UFC, he's like the UFC champion of the world, as far as I'm concerned.
He just likes to smash. My goat likes to smash. Yeah, of course he took the corner, which led to the goal. And I was just proud of the team, how we kind of resolutely defended everything else that they threw at us, especially in the last kind of 5-10 minutes where they brought on Jay Rodriguez and they just really started to pile the pressure on. Of course, if we're going to focus on the negatives of it, Ben Davies had one of those weird games where I feel like if we attacked on Doherty's side, he may have looked just as bad. But I felt like after kind of digesting the game a bit, I don't know if you remember, there was an episode of Friends where they're playing American football and they just let Rachel have the ball because they know they leave her open in space because they know she's not going to do anything with it. And I felt like that's kind of what they did with Ben Davies. And it was a shame because he never really had any passes on to do any 1-2s off. He was just, yeah, it was a strange game from him. But what I will say, he managed to kind of, he angled a cutback, which led to our only touching the opposition box after an hour. So it was one of those games. It was a cutback to Son. It's a cutback to Son, and Son miscontrolled it, and it went down as our only touch in the opposition box for an hour. But other than that, yeah, it was unfortunately quite poor. But I'd say the same. Davis and Doherty were both off it, to be honest.
I think
that for me has to be Doherty's worst game so far in terms of just not really being effective. I don't want to be too harsh, but yeah, it wasn't good to see two guys that look like the generic characters on football games. They look like Pro Evo regen type guys, just basically not really doing much on either flank. I was just like, oh man, this is a really shit game.
The game was ugly.
It was devoid of quality, man. Devoid of quality.
But I mean, I feel like those were the games maybe last season or the season before that we started to come undone. So it was interesting to see like that we met them in terms of not so much intensity, but it was quite a physical game. Like you know what you get when you play Burnley. It was quite a physical game. I felt like the guys gave it as much as they could. They gave it back. Højbjerg, very solid. Sissoko, solid as well. Somebody I wanted to bring up, obviously, I'm sure it's bound to come up. But Ndombele, compared to last season's match at Burnley, so he had a massive point to prove, man. And I think he got his point across. Like he looked sharp. He looked. It looked like night and day if you compare it to the last performance. So I mean, what do you guys think of Ndombele's growth in the team? Like how. And his consistency, should he be the first name on the team sheet in that midfield?
This was the game that I sort of kept an eye on when the fixture list came out. Was it deep enough in the season for him to have built up a little bit of rhythm and all of that stuff? And the amount of times I heard, "Oh, Burnley, no sprints," all of that bullshit, just had me geared up to see a standout performance. And I gotta say, it's his redemption game. Like there's not a person out there who is of sound mind and doesn't have an ulterior motive who can deny this guy's class anymore. Like the work ethic was there, the strength was there, the activity, the intensity, the skill, pretty much everything you want in a centre midfielder of that ilk. It was on show. So yeah, man, I'm a happy man when it comes to Tongi.
Tonga is doing well.
It's definitely redemption season, and like when you asked just then, like if is he one of the first names on the team sheet in terms of midfield. Like I love Tanguy Ndombele nearly as much as my own son, but I mean, if anything, with the Burnley game and obviously the Antwerp game, which we'll get to, I feel like the first name on the team sheet in terms of midfield, if we're going in order, it's going to be Kane Son, then Lloris, his first name's on the team sheet. It's going to end up being now Pierre Højbjerg. Purely because as like strong as our squad is, especially how deep it is as well, we haven't got a midfielder who's just like as much of a ball winning midfielder as Højbjerg is, and how combative he is. And as I say, like I'd say he's probably now first name on the team sheet in terms of midfield, and then Tanguy Ndombele just behind, only in the sense that we'd have Lo Celso who can come in and do a similar job.
Yeah, I can definitely second that as well. You know, as we've always like kind of said, Højbjerg coming in was never really that stellar signing that we all wanted. But the one thing I always thought in my mind was that we needed someone who was happy to do the dirty work, happy to try and win the ball and let the more creative players do it, but also someone who's a bit of a technician. Like I think I saw the other day that currently up to this point in the league, he's had like the most passes of any player in the Premier League. And definitely in terms of ball recoveries and tackles, he's definitely one of our top sort of players in that department. So we are actually kind of very lucky to be able to have him playing as well as he has been, considering it was a bit of a shaky start from him. But yeah, I think definitely he's so important. And actually, when he doesn't play, you can kind of see it in that midfield, which we'll talk about on the Antwerp game. But like one of the things I actually really like as well about having him in the team is that he's like the perfect kind of spoil, along with people like Sissoko or Lo Celso, to allow someone like Tanguy to be able to do what he does. Because obviously Tanguy's getting back to full fitness, and you know he's trying to like sort of revive his like creative juices and getting on the ball. And actually, it's positive to see Ndombele doing all the defensive work, but actually where he is most effective is when he's receiving the ball and try to affect the play, which someone like Højbjerg basically allows him to do. So I think that's going to go understated. I think Tottenham fans are starting to realise actually of his importance in the team. And obviously, like, you know, Tonguy's getting better and better. Like he seems to be so much more confident. Not that he wasn't confident, but in terms of being in the team, how happy he is. Mourinho speaking about him positively in media. So I'm kind of just happy that this is where he's kind of at now. Like, and rightly, as Sai said, it really was redemption, because the performance last season, even though I didn't want to talk too much on that, it was miles better this game. And I'm just happy, man, because this is a player who's got an unbelievable amount of potential, you know, and the fact that even he's saying that we've not even seen the best is scary to me. So as long as we keep him happy, then
I liked. I was reading something about Ndombele saying that he didn't even feel like Mourinho's comments sort of fazed him as much as everybody else said, and I think he agreed with some of them, if that makes sense. To an extent, anyway. I don't think he would have agreed with everything he said, but I feel like from his perspective, he feels like a lot of that not necessarily helped, but he felt like it was honest. And I think he respected it from Mourinho, if that makes sense. Like I'm sure he could see that is not the kind of performance that he's capable of when he was at Barnsley last year. Like it would have been ridiculous by his own standard. But I wanted to kind of use that to segue ever so slightly to talking about Lo Celso. So this is, I guess, with one eye on the next game. But what did you think of Lo Celso's cameo? Do you think, or even just in general, I guess, what do you think of Lo Celso's role? So if Ndombele is the second name on the team sheet in that midfield, how does Lo Celso fit into this? Is he literally Ndombele's backup at this point, or does he need to show a bit more consistency with his ability? Sai, you got something for me?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a strange one. I think a lot of us were clamoring for a sort of single pivot with Ndombele and Lo Celso flanking whoever that was. But we've not really seen that at all in a season and a bit. So it is an interesting one. I do think currently, given all of the factors, fitness, injuries, form, and the confidence of the rest of the team, I do feel like Lo Celso is firmly a second choice at the minute. And obviously that is sort of, it's also a sort of offshoot of the fact that some of the other guys who are in the squad aren't really fit. They're not in any sort of form either. So Lo Celso would be a sort of trusty backup in that situation. So shoehorning Sissoko into some of these team sheets and making his role basically to disrupt and just give the ball to somebody else, I think sort of aids us going forward. It enables us to be a bit smarter in the way that we rotate. Even though, as we'll get on to, I think we made a hash of it against Antwerp, but yeah, I think currently he's definitely second choice.
Okay, anyone disagree?
No, definitely. I can definitely agree with what Sai's saying. Like, I feel like there is potentially a place for him because, like, it's funny for me personally. I think Sissoko is better in the bigger games because in the bigger games, there's like, I find the games are often really won really in midfield, and someone like him, he is very good at disrupting and make it very difficult for opposition players, whatever the kind of quality, you know, and that's not talking about his ability on the ball, more so off it. So my preference would be to have like technically better players, technically players who are a bit more proficient at using the ball and trying to unlock defenses, and probably in games against weak opposition, potentially you could call Burnley a weak opposition. I suppose I would prefer to have someone like Lo Celso. But then also it kind of makes sense because Burnley are a very physical, strong, sort of hard-working team. So it probably made sense to have him in there. I think this is a question that I think the media probably needs to put to Mourinho because I'm not even sure if he believes that the three of them could maybe play together. Mm-hmm. When I look at Lo Celso, I think he kind of reminds me sometimes of Eriksen in the sense that he's very combative. He's got a massive engine, always running. But then also in the final third, you can clearly see that he's very good technically, and he clearly wants to try and make things happen. But I also feel like it's been very difficult for him. I mean, it's been weird this season as well. Like the injuries have kind of crept, and they've not really left him. And while someone like Ndombele has been able to build fitness and play regularly, he actually hasn't been able to play at all, if anything. And he's probably trying to play himself back into form as well. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think, moving forward, he probably is the best sort of replacement for Ndombele, but I would like to see them play together in the future. I mean, that would be quite a nice.
I think Mourinho's looking to do that as well. I think low key, or not even low key. I think he quite enjoys playing Tanguy and Lo Celso off each other.
Yeah,
a bit just for the motivational purposes, and then once Lo Celso has gotten over these injuries, these niggles, like obviously not forgetting he played through all of these injuries last season in the post-lockdown games, and he was arguably our best player. I mean, bar Kane maybe, but I think maybe in the future as we get to some of the more latter stage of this season, he'll definitely experiment with it. But for now, I can firmly tell that Mourinho is enjoying just playing them off each other for motivational purposes, and obviously rotation as well with the amount of games we've had.
I think we should quickly touch on Kane Son before we move on. I mean, it's more of the same, more of exactly what you expect. One assisting the other. I think Carragher commented on Kane. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was essentially saying he's the best passer in the Premier League after Kevin De Bruyne in terms of direct passes, assists, key passes. It's good to see him finally start to get some recognition, to be honest. Like, I don't feel like this is something new in his game. I don't think it's a new element. Maybe it's something that wasn't making highlight reels before because some of his teammates were not finishing their dinner. But it's definitely good to see him getting attention for this. Are we seeing the future of Harry Kane here? Like once his legs leave him, or is this just literally the media just starting to pay attention to something that we all know already?
I think it's definitely the media. I think if anything, obviously with the talk of him being in decline stuff, I think if anything, he's doing more running now than he's doing before because he's running back. You see him out of times he's tracked back on the edge of our own box as well and then burst forward to score. It's been ridiculous. I think he's kind of exploits for this kind of long range part, like dropping deep and long range passing, has been there ever since that goal he set up for Eric Dier. Pochettino's first game away at West Ham, 90th minute. He just came off the bench and just past the body. And then we saw so much of it with Kane and Dele, and it's mind-boggling how it's only just been picked up by Monday Night Football analysis now. But I mean, it's good to see. Like, I'll accept he's dropping deeper than he was before. Like, he's not just dropping into 10 positions, he's dropping into like the 8s and the 6 kind of positions, kind of like Firmino does for Liverpool, but just with nowhere near as much output as Kane. It's just facts now. So that's why they have to pick up on it, especially Carragher.
Well, it's true though. I think you're right, man. Like, sorry to interrupt you, but like, it's true in the sense that, like, if you think about what Liverpool asked Firmino to do and what Tottenham expect Kane to do, Kane completely trounces him, and it's not as if like Firmino is scoring regularly as well. Like, Kane has been scoring goals as well. So, like, the fact that this has only been highlighted is definitely a media thing, man. If you think about it, like, people have always given, again, Kane slander, just, it irks me, man, because they've always given him this title of tap-in merchant, penalty merchant, shit golden boot, and all this stuff. But this is someone. This is someone. This is crazy. It's crazy to me. This is someone who's got 2 golden boots. He's got 2 Premier League golden boots. This is someone who knows what he needs to do and different types of goals he can score. But not only does he do that, he's also always been able to provide amazing and very intricate types of assists for different players. I can think of like 3 that always like stick to me. Mm-hmm. The one that Dele Alli does away at Arsenal in the cup, that's unbelievable, because you take away even the fact that the pass is unreal. He takes it in 1 touch, controls it in another, and then his 3rd touch is a pass over the top to Ali. All right. The second one that you see him do was away at Swansea. Takes it on the left wing, basically dribbles and finds somehow over the top into Ali. Ali then strikes it, gets a goalkeeper, and then on the rebound, hits it in to the goal. And then the third one, which I still think was an unreal assist, was the 3rd goal for Son. It's from Southampton, where he's basically from deep on that right-hand side. And that was his 2nd touch, because the first touch, Lo Celso fired it into him, and he's taken 1 touch to basically take it out. And on the 2nd touch, with just 1 look, he finds Son. So like, these are different cases where he's not just doing this like because he has to do it. Like, this is some stuff that clearly he's able to do consciously, but for some reason the media have never ever recognized that this is a part of his game, which he has. Like, he's such a quality technical footballer as well, and like, people also don't give enough credit to like his footballing IQ. Like, he's a very, very smart footballer. It's just the fact that he's been the number 1 guy for scoring goals for Tottenham, and now people are starting to realize actually there's an all-round game to him, which is crazy because it's always been there. Like, we know, we're Tottenham fans. Like, we know.
That's the problem, man. Is when you're so great at one thing, like his striking ability for me is unworldly. When you're so good in front of goal, people just overlook other aspects of your game, especially if they're not translating into assists. I think one of the weird things for me is, obviously, we went through a stage where we did see Kane basically playing between the posts. Poch, for some reason, stopped making him run around, and he became quite like static. His movement wasn't the same, and literally all of his goals were pretty much coming in the penalty area. Mm-hmm. And the whole time I'm just thinking, that's not Harry Kane's game. Like, one of the things that you always notice, especially during the season where we played the 3 at the back with Dele and Eriksen flanking Kane, they would all just interchange positions over the course of a game. They'd all pull guys out. You have space run for Ali to run in behind, and Kane was just picking the ball up and doing whatever he wanted with it. Either drop a shoulder and smash it in the back of the net, or assist somebody. So it's one of those things, man. Like, it is strange to me that people only choose now to highlight it, but I'm glad that they are picking up, because it makes Sevi's take of him being washed.
Oh,
somebody tag him in this so he can hear it. That shit was fucking ridiculous.
Ridiculous, man.
Always happens to Kane.
What was his take again? Just that he was in decline.
His legs were gone, and a bunch of shit, basically.
People always used to say Kane needs rest, man. That was the massive one. Like, he needs rest. He can't run no more. And like you said, though, he's running a lot more now. But speaking of smashing narratives, I mean, we've seen this stat sort of being thrown around a lot over the past 2 or so weeks about the all-time Premier League top partnerships. So I think Kane and Son are on 29 now. They might have got 30, I'm not sure. But one thing I did notice about that list is, I mean, you've got 2 Spurs partnerships in the top 5, considering that people say we're not, or some people say we're not a competitive team like that. And then another thing is, Didier Drogba and Lampard are the number one partnership, and then Harry Kane and Son are number 2. Both have been managed by Mourinho. And you get this narrative that Mourinho is a really defensive manager, which obviously there is truth to it. But do you think his offensive style is underplayed?
That's loaded
question.
up. I think
I've been cooking that one still. I've been cooking that one, man.
This is your best Lamella impression, man. You're the shit house in here, bro.
I've been cooking up. I've been in the kitchen on this one. I can't lie, bro. About to restart the mood coat. Let's see what's going on. No, but seriously, what do you think of that, though?
Without going in depth into it, because I need some more time to digest that question. Just been in the kitchen. We only have to look at how many goals we've scored this season. So I still think we're the highest scoring team in the Premier League. That might be wrong, but if not, like at least like top 2, 3. And he's always said it. Like, my teams have still been able to score goals. He's always said it when he's prompted with these kind of questions in the media. So he might obviously not be attack first, but he's always got like that in mind, that we need to know how to score goals. I think a lot of it, though, I would put down to player initiative this season, rather like more player initiative than Jose, maybe like on a 60-40 ratio, because we kind of saw a swing in our attack in the Southampton game, where like Ndombele and Kane both just started drifting deeper and deeper, which didn't really seem to be from Mourinho's instruction, and it just kind of came off, and he was just like, do you know what, boys, you keep doing that. We're going to score goals doing that. You keep doing that and I'll take the credit. But yeah, like I still think it has been quite downplayed, but I'm happy for them to do that, because if we can creep up and still be title challengers kind of under the radar, then yeah, I'm happy for them to downplay it.
See, I thought I'd start with a little bit of Mourinho love, because I mean, we're about to go into Royal Antwerp review, and I don't think there's going to be much more. So I thought I'd give him a little chance, man. I thought I'd give him a little chance anyway. But Sai, do you want to take us away with Royal Antwerp? What are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, man. What a shitty drab performance. That was like a sleeping pill. Like, I woke up going into the second half with my son asleep on top of me. That's literally like how boring it was. We sat there. I'm like, yeah, let me watch football with my 2-year-old, and it put me to sleep. Funnily enough, I only missed like 2 minutes of the whole game, because that's how it ends up working. But yeah, we lined up with a heavily rotated side. Pretty much the biggest additions were Dele finally got a start. Bale played. We had Bergwijn, Vinicius. Lo Celso came back into the team. Harry Winks. Pretty much a totally different side from what finished at Burnley. And yeah, we played a 4-2-3-1, which we haven't seen as much recently. So for me, I was a little bit concerned, because obviously there's a big microscope and a spotlight on the likes of Bergwijn and Dele, and realistically throwing these guys into such a heavily rotated side is a recipe for disaster. We've seen it over the years, from when Pochettino decided to put Fazio in a North London Derby Cup game. a player that hadn't been playing any football, who didn't have any chemistry with anybody else, and we got smashed to pieces pretty much. Like, we looked terrible in that game, and we looked terrible yesterday against Antwerp. And yeah, to be perfectly honest, I think that's Mourinho deliberately sabotaging in certain instances, because he's right on Instagram with all the funny memes and all of that shit. That to me doesn't seem like a manager who took the match particularly seriously. By 45 minutes, he made 4 changes. So either we were bad and it surprised him, which I don't think was the case, or it was premeditated, which the cynic in me says it was.
I felt like it was harsh on some of the guys that were taken off, especially Vinicius. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I probably had the worst link to the first half of all time, but I had absolutely no motivation to fix it because the game just looked terrible, like in the little bits and bobs I was getting. But I mean, for me, I thought Winks was very lucky to finish the game in terms of his performance. But I mean, yeah, you could have probably taken off anybody on the pitch and been justified. Like, there wasn't really a standout performer. Maybe I would say Aurier is probably one of the only ones who could have left the pitch with his head held high, based on what I saw, which wasn't much, I'll be honest. You think
even with that, like, as bad as we were, their goal came from a mistake, which is just something that you shouldn't see. You really shouldn't see that type of thing at the highest level of football. Like, we gotta be honest here. Like, some of the decision making for some of these mistakes are just getting ridiculous. Like, I tend to be quite pragmatic with my criticism, but fuck me, man. I was sitting there and I'm like, you're left-footed, so everybody on this pitch knows you're left-footed. So why are you turning to your left? Like, it's predictable, it's slow, it's redundant. It's like, just fucking clear the ball, man. Like, you're not going to dribble out of this situation. Just kick it long.
The scariest thing is he had options as well. See, I didn't watch the first half, but obviously seeing the highlights and seeing that segment when he made that mistake, he had Reguilon, he had Winks available. I think Dele might have been available a bit higher up the pitch as well. He had at least 2-3 options, and he chose not to clear it. He chose not to pass it, and he just kind of got himself in a bit of a mess. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but I mean, I kind of have a bit of sympathy for Ben just being played in that position in the first place, because we should have been registering Joe Rodon a bit sooner. Or maybe just playing someone else centre back. Like, we can spare centre back fitness because they don't tend to run around as much. Maybe Eric Diaz nursing an injury, I don't know, but I only have a bit of sympathy for Ben Davies in that sense, just being played in a position which he's not familiar with. Because even with Sanchez being a centre back, him playing on the left side as opposed to the right kind of made him a bit more kind of disjointed. And he obviously made that mistake against West Ham when he scored the own goal, because his body position is just completely different. So yeah, I mean, it was all round a bit poor. I felt sorry for Carlos as well. Like you said, again, I only caught the highlights of the first half, but he looked like the only one that was going to make something potentially happen up there, or the only one of the front three that looked at least relatively sharp. I'm not sure though if I buy into. I know he made a lot of changes, Jose, before the game, and it was a completely different team. But this is a team which has been playing. It played against Lask and Shindia. If I've said that right, if I finally got that pronunciation right, I'm just going to be proud and sign off the pod now. But I mean, these players have played together, maybe not like at a high intensity, but they should have been a bit more familiar with each other than what was shown against Antwerp yesterday. So I was particularly disappointed with Dele, because I've still been really hopeful that he can kind of play his way back into the team, and just to see him kind of somewhat near his best again.
I think for me, what I will do, like in terms of them playing together. The key for me is in the last game, Vinicius had Lucas there, and you could see that they had chemistry.
Yeah.
They're obviously compatriots. They've obviously built up a little bit of off-field chemistry, and they want to see each other do well. Bell really hasn't played with any of these men for more than 50 minutes. So that's always going to be a little bit of a sort of restriction to what we're going to see out of him. Players overlapping and stuff like that on the flanks tends to all be down to timing and reps together. And then realistically playing Dele, like obviously Dele was poor. I'm not gonna get away from it. He gave the ball away maybe 11 times or something like that. But when you've got someone like Dele in the team who's so used to playing with a Son or a Kane, and then you bring those two guys on and you take him off, what type of message is that sending us? It's like, all right, cool. You used to be with these man, but now you got to sit at the dance table. It's like, come on, fam. Like he's experienced enough within this squad that he deserves to have somebody that he's familiar with on the pitch with him at the same time. He's not one of the new guys. We're not trying to create new partnerships. He is a player that has contributed, deserves a little bit more respect, and deserves the opportunity to play amongst guys who he played with during preseason or played with when we challenged for league titles or whatever it may be. Like, so I personally just think it's a bit of self-sabotage, in all honesty. Like, came out after the game.
I was gonna say, let me jump in there as well, because I want to touch on that point. Like, I think you've brought up something quite interesting, because even with the changes that Mourinho made, like when he brought on Moura and Lamela at the same time, I felt like that didn't necessarily work. You could see, I mean, Moura and Lamela rarely play together. And you could see that they, like, I didn't think necessarily that we played terrible in the second half. I thought what the problem was we looked really disjointed. Like, we'd get the ball into interesting positions and then it would slowly fizzle out. You'd see people make the wrong pass or the wrong run, people getting frustrated at each other. I think Lamela tried to play a 1-2 with Moura, the ball didn't come back. All kinds of different things. And I think you could have swapped Ali for probably any of the four that came on at halftime, with the exception of Højbjerg. And possibly you could have had a bit more of a better result, I think. What do you think? Is that the point you're trying to get across?
Yeah, pretty much. There was a moment where Bale was making a run on the left and Dele picks the ball to his right. I could read into that and be like, all right, cool. Bale is this new glossy new toy who's really an old toy. Everybody's all high and mighty about it. What about me type of thing? Or you can just put it down to sharpness. And either way, it's like, look at how this kid has been treated over the last however many months now, not getting onto Prem team sheets or anything like that, whether or not it's deserved or not, to make a change so abruptly and to literally, it's like being on Football Manager or FIFA, where every player has their role. They go from crucial to surplus to requirements, and you're like, fam, have we even really had a conversation about this? That's what it looks like for me. And with Mourinho chirping in the media afterwards, you can see what he's doing, man. And it doesn't work for every player. We said this last year with Tongi. We said it with Pogba. Like, it doesn't work with certain men. It's not down to, oh yeah, he's got a boohoo man line. Like, he's not focused on football. Like, fuck all of that. Like, the fact of the matter is, he's a professional footballer who has worked his way up to a position where he should get a little bit more respect than what he's getting. And it's up to the manager to get the best out of what tools he's got at his disposal. And I don't see him doing enough to do that.
I think he's trying too much, if anything, in the wrong way as well. Like, it was said before, like, the changes at half time, I don't think he really needed to make 4. Was it that Olympiacos game where he brought off Eric Dier and subbed on Ericsson? Yeah. And it was like during the first half. So that would be seen as slightly abrupt, but again, necessary, and it doesn't come across too panicky or anything like that, where 4 subs to Antwerp at half time. Like, come on, like you could have sprung on Højbjerg for either Winks or Lo Celso, or even Dele at the time. It was probably going to be Dele, wasn't it? So you could provide a bit more of a platform for us to play with us having that defensive cover, because we didn't really look like we had that in the first half. Yeah, like to make 4 changes and then to come out in the media like he did, as much as I've liked his whole instillment of a new mentality, or his kind of, you know, his him trying to instill that new mentality with us, like him coming out in the media after and say, oh, I could have subbed off 11. And then that Instagram post as well was just over the top. I mean, what other manager is calling out their team on Instagram sat on an empty bus? And he was saying, like, the quote was, oh, I hope everyone on the bus is unhappy as I am, where it was like an empty looking bus. So I was just hoping like the masses didn't clock on to how much of a meme that could be with Mourinho and his bus. But yeah, like that whole his whole attitude from halftime onwards and then the post-game interviews left a bit of a bitter taste.
Yeah. I think the comment I read that I thought was a bit bitter was when he was like, his job from here is easy now, or something along those lines.
Yeah,
that was really bitter, I think.
When he comes across, it's like, oh, I know who I'm going to be playing now. When you're asking me why I'm not playing these players, so he says it plural, but we probably know who he means. And him just coming out and saying that, it kind of comes out. And like, I don't have a problem with him kind of saying that kind of thing behind closed doors, but to say that in front of the media, to effectively make it out like he's closing the door on certain players or player, it's not a good look, in my opinion.
There's always, like, with Mourinho, you know, whether you like him or hate him, there's always going to be a little bit of that toxic streak that runs through him, that, like, it's almost always itching to get out. I do feel like the way he's treating certain players is somewhat day and night. Like, if you're in his good books, you're in his good books, and if you're not, you really are not. And that can change literally from what we can see, like, at the change of a hat. But like, with regards to I definitely agree with you with regards to the subs. I didn't think 4 subs was necessary. I didn't catch the first half, but from what I was reading and from what the commentary was given to me, you know, everyone was quite poor. So the fact that you made 4 subs with players who aren't very comfortable playing with each other, new players in the team as well, a defensive partnership that was also new, I felt like it was probably a bit much. I think in the end we got 16 shots, I think 3 or 4 on target or something like this, and then ended the game with Lamela, Lucas, Kane, Son, all on the pitch, and still didn't manage to score. I mean, I feel like Mourinho kind of, I don't know, did he sabotage himself? He may have, but I just feel like we didn't really deserve anything from yesterday either. Strangely, in Europa League away from home, we've always kind of historically been a bit funny. Maybe not so much in the Champions League, but in the Europa League, we were just...
It's almost a Belgium thing at this point.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. You know, there's been a number of games that in my like lifetime that I can think away from home where we just, you know, haven't. But it's difficult because, like, we had this discussion earlier. Like, I'm a big fan of Ali. I've always been a big fan of Ali. I've always had stocks in him. I believe that he probably overperformed in his earlier career as a Tottenham player, and it always left you thinking, okay, can he maintain or continue those sort of levels of performance? Yes, he's had injuries and whatnot, but I'm really, you know, like looking at him and trying to just gauge where he is, like, in his career, because he is still quite young, and probably for the first time in his career, he's having to accept that actually he isn't the first name on the sheet. And with regards to the inconsistency and actually the unfamiliarity of playing with players who he doesn't play with regularly, you can say, yeah, there is a lot to be said that actually is very difficult for him. You know, players like Son and Kane, who he's always kind of played with. But then I just want to see something different in him, because I'm almost looking at him and watching him and seeing like his demeanor. His demeanor comes across as a little bit frustrated, a bit negative, and I feel like he's actually not in the position where he can play himself into form. He actually really has to somewhat come into the team and hit the ground running. So it is kind of frustrating. Like, there's a number of players who are kind of probably like that as well. You could probably call Bergwijn alongside that. You know, someone like Winks, who used to be regularly in the team, is now having to accept sort of a squad-like role. And it is difficult because as you come into the team, it's very difficult. You're unfamiliar. Playing at this level is not always easy. And obviously, because you play so infrequently, when you do play, any mistake or any bad performance you do is generally amplified more than what it is. So it is kind of difficult. I don't think Mourinho is playing it very well, because we all know pretty much what the team will be on Sunday. So you do just kind of want to hope that these guys that do play go for it. And that's the one thing that actually upset me more so than anything yesterday. It was not so much the fact that we played bad, because we did play bad, like, it's accepted. But it's the fact that the guys who did play, I want to see those guys give a bit more, because those are the ones who are really trying to push the guys in the first 11 from their birth. So I want to see these guys trying to show the manager, albeit it's Antwerp away on a Thursday, but I still feel like the team that played yesterday had the minerals enough to beat that Antwerp team, and we just didn't turn up yesterday.
Man, I just think, just going back onto the whole Mourinho Alli thing, like, I think Mourinho's biggest job and what his focus point has to be, like, isn't going to be as much our playing style as it is going to be his man management with this kind of top heavy squad and the amount of quality we do have up there. And with these comments in the media now, it's almost shown his hand to the point as if this is now literally do or die. And it's kind of leaning towards Dele being pushed out a bit, but this is either going to really work or it won't. And I still think he wants the best in Dele. Like, he wants to get the best out of Dele still. It's just these kind of old school methods of doing it. And you could say it worked with Tanguy. I don't know how much of a part that played, as opposed to Daniel Levy having a bit of a word with him. But yeah, it's almost do or die for Dele now. Or otherwise, I reckon if he doesn't pick up a bit of form soon, he'll probably be gone by January.
So with one eye on the Brighton game, is there anybody here that would start Dele, maybe with a more familiar lineup? Or do you think it's a bit more one for...
I think he's too out of sorts. I think what would be a good option for him is, like, say we get into the position we did in the West Ham game and he was to come on then for the last half an hour, 25 minutes. I thought he would have been a better option to bring on than Bale at that point, to be honest. I think that would be the perfect scenario for him to just get a little bit of sharpness.
Yeah, I mean...
mate, if we can bring Joe Rodon on as a sub and he can make the bench, having not been with the team for any time, cropped Lo Celso, who's not played any football, is making team sheets and getting on the pitch, there's no reason why Dele shouldn't be able to get a cameo in the Premier League. Dropping him from Prem squads, I think, is just one of those unnecessary things where it's like, you know, the media is going to ask you about it. You know, the player's in need of some protection because the fans have been on his back for a while. The media has been on his back. There's been rumors for the longest time and sort of projections of what type of man he is and all of that bullshit. All of that stuff has played a part into the peaks and troughs that we've seen in this kid. So now ousting him basically just adds that more pressure to it. Maybe he thinks that's going to turn him into a superstar, but genuinely, I don't think it's the right approach, especially when someone is clearly bereft of confidence. So me personally, I'd like to see him get a place on the bench just so it sends the right message to everyone within the squad to say your opportunities will be there, but when you get them, you need to take them. Like, playing in rotation teams is not that. People need to get their head out the bum Because at the end of the day, like the real testament to where you are in the pecking order is whether or not you're on Premier League team sheets.
Mm-hmm.
Odd Europa League game in Belgium, that's not it.
True.
I'd like to eventually see him make his way back on the bench, but it's not going to happen for another couple of months. I think we're far down the rabbit hole with the Mad Hatter.
Who would we leave out of the squad if we were to try and get him a place on the bench? It is a hard one, isn't it?
It's a hard one. I mean, he would probably be in place of, depending on who would start. I mean, it looks like Bale is probably going to always make the bench until he gets probably fully fit, with Lucas usually probably starting in his place, leaving really only a place for either Lo Celso or Lamela. I feel like these are two players that Mourinho likes, especially Lamela. So it really is about a semi sort of fit Lo Celso or a fully fit but just out of form Dele. It's very difficult to kind of pick at this point. I feel like Vinicius is always going to make the squad now that we have a second striker. I don't know. That's my take at this point.
Sad how far Stevie B's fallen down the pecking order as well, man. Just from
shame.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Neither one of them are getting on benches, and they're not worse players than any of these, man. Like I'm not hearing any of that. Like if again we had Bale, Lamela, who are basically the same person in terms of what they're offering at the minute. Lamela more fouls and more energy, but that's about it. Their role is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Lo Celso, again, he's not fit. What the fuck is he doing on benches? Like, that's three guys by my account that could be interchangeable with either Bergwijn or Dele. So, like our squad is good. Our squad is good, but only 11 guys are in form.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get what I mean? So there's always 6 positions on that bench that are up for grabs, or 7 positions, I should say.
Yeah.
So, what do we expect scoreline wise? And then I think we should probably move on to some controversial opinions before we end.
Is this for Brighton?
Yeah, sorry, for Brighton. What do we expect?
We're home, aren't we? Yeah, Brighton.
Yes, let me double check though.
Yeah. Oh man, I mean, this will be our 4th game at home.
Yeah, at home.
We haven't won at home in the league. I feel like Kane and Son are in good enough form, and Ndombele is good enough form. Højbjerg is playing well at the moment as well.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be an interesting one because Brighton do play some good stuff. Like Graham Potter's definitely got them playing some good stuff. They seem to be somewhat of a trustworthy team, and I do like some of their players. I like Mopé. I like Lamptey. I feel like we are in a good vein of form, especially in the Premier League. So I think we should have enough to beat them. But my only issue is that for some reason we didn't manage to finish our dinner in these home games against these teams. Because arguably, bar Everton, I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't have taken maximum points against these teams at home. So to be where we are, where we've drawn to West Ham, we've drawn to Newcastle, unfortunately lost to Everton. You know, not winning a home game in the Premier League at this point is a bit. I'm baffled at this point because these are the kind of games I thought we would be picking up points. Looking forward past the Ludogorets game next Thursday, you know, our schedule really does ramp up in terms of the kind of quality teams and oppositions that we'll be playing, and also the spacings and timings between those games as well. So this is the kind of game that we need to really get our points and do what we need to do, even if it means a similar sort of result whereby we may not play as well, but let's give ourselves confidence that we can win games at home in the league. And I think if we're in a decent position, we can be in the top 2 or 3 at the end of this weekend. So it would be good because our game is late on the Sunday as well. So that will be one of the last games of the weekend. It would be kind of important that having seen all the previous results, we can kind of motivate ourselves to try and get the points and then look forward to Thursday against the Ludogorets.
What do you reckon the score will be?
I'm going the score. I'm going 2-0. Son double.
Yeah, I mean, it might even be a bit of an obvious take, but I felt like obviously because Brighton are so good at progressing and kind of being a proactive team, I think we'll probably try and invite a bit of pressure on from them and then just do the whole Kane Son transition and Ndombele Kane Son transition. I'm really licking my lips at the thought of Lamptey and Reguilon kind of coming against each other if that happens. I'm not sure if Reguilon's going to start having played 90 minutes in midweek, but I hope he does. And I think with that, it's so annoying that we haven't actually won a home game yet. I keep forgetting that in the league anyway, but I'm going for a 3-0 win against Brighton.
I'm with you on that. They showed, especially against Manchester United, that even though they're quite dynamic going forward, they leave a lot of gaps. They are super susceptible to a counter-attack. I'm just hoping they hit the post as many times as they did in that game as well. Yeah, I'd say 2-0. I'll be a bit more conservative this week because every other result has sort of ended in 2 goals less than what I expected. So maybe I'll say 6-0 Spurs, and then we'll. But no, I think you can. It's a safe bet to expect that Kane or Son will score in the Premier League. So yeah, hopefully both of them get me to the top of all my FPL leagues.
I think from my perspective, it will definitely be a high-scoring game. I think, like you said, if Reguilon starts, I'm a bit more confident in Tottenham's win. I think if Davis starts on that left, I'm a bit more worried. It might become a bit more like a basketball game. I think I'm gonna go with maybe a 3-1 to Spurs or 3-2. I think we will concede, but I think we'll have enough to get it over the line.
X right out. I love it.
So I mean, let's have a quick look at some of the most controversial opinions that we had on the Twitter. So I'll give a little bit of background as while we get them up. I mean, a little bit of background to it while we get them up. But in the middle of the week, we sent out a tweet on our social medias asking for some of our followers and just some of the wider Spurs fan base to give us their most controversial opinions on Tottenham Hotspur. And boy, some of you guys are absolutely insane.
Savages as well, by the way. Savages. There was one which said that Tanguy Ndombele was overrated, by the way. And I will find whoever you are. I will find your postcode. We all will. It's only a matter of time.
I still can't believe this, bro. I keep bringing it up, but there are people out there that think that we play better without Harry Kane. Like, that's insane to me. What are they watching? Wow.
There was one that I'm trying to look for it that was quite funny, where someone basically said, "We will not stand for this sort of slander. That sort of rubbish can basically get out of here." What was that one for? I think that was
been a Tongi one.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think that was for the Tongi on overrated one, and it's like we don't do that around.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones was El Petri said, "We are an elaborate social science experiment studying the impact of mood swings on behavior. The Amazon documentary was actually peer-reviewed research." I think that was great because it's controversial, but it's fucking true, man. Like, this club does stuff to moods, definitely.
One of my
what do you think of this one?
Go on, Tops.
One was said, White Hart Lane over the new stadium.
Oh yeah, I think
is that a controversial shot? I love
only
White Hart
because
Lane,
of
man.
how we've obviously been patient and not really been signing any players because we wanted to build this whole new project and stadium for it to be quite quiet. But I've only been to the stadium a couple of times, and yeah, so far I'm leaning towards the old White Hart Lane a bit more.
It's a shame because I feel like the new stadium, in terms of timing, and obviously nobody could predict this, but it just came at the absolute wrong time. Yeah, it's a shame. What other opinions were there that were insane? I feel
Sherwood
like
had a good reign.
Sherwood.
Oh.
There were lots of
It
those.
was
Lots of
corny as
those.
hell, but I still remember his first game was against Pochettino Southampton, and I saw the lineup and I thought a 12-year-old from FIFA Ultimate Team had picked it. I remember, I think it was Bentaleb's first start. It was Bentaleb. It was a 4-4-2. I think it was away.
I was at a game at the Lane against Southampton, and sorry, go on. Just racking my
I was trying to remember the starting lineup as well. It was definitely a 4-4-2, and I think it was Bentaleb and Paulinho as the midfield two, and Adebayor, Soldado. I can't remember who was up front with Adebayor. Actually, I want to think it was Kane, but I don't think he was quite game ready yet. And we somehow won that game 3-2, and just that was a lot of the media talk when obviously we found out that Pochettino was going to be taking on the job and Sherwood wasn't getting the full-time role. It's like, actually, Sherwood did an okay job, in my opinion. He was corny as hell. I accept that. But everyone was like, oh, but he beat Pochettino Southampton with a lineup only kind of a 12-year-old would kind of pick. Actually, I think the lineup may have been Bentaleb and Ryan Mason in midfield. So it was staggering. And of course, I was a bit biased as well because I was at that Sunderland game at home where Lee Cattermole scored from like 35 yards and I was just sat there in shock. And then we just decimated them. I think it was probably one of Eriksen's best games that I've seen live because he just ran the show from out wide. And of course, Harry Kane scored his first ever Premier League goal. Adebayor did the salute in the corner I was sitting in. Did I salute back? Yeah, you damn right I did. Yeah, and I enjoyed it. It was one of those kind of things that twined in with our identity, with just not really caring about tactics. It was just all vibes and trying to score as many goals as possible.
I loved it. I loved that period, man.
I think my controversial shout has to be, I had one that I posted. I won't redo that. I think AVB should have been given more time. I can't lie. That AVB signing was that era's sort of Mourinho signing for me, in terms of I never really thought it could happen. I thought he was a bit higher than where we were. And to be perfectly honest, I just think he got quite unlucky with the fact that Daniel Levy had at the time, especially, had ulterior motives. Just before he came in, he sold Modric. Yeah. And after his first season, he sold Bell. So the fact of the matter is what he would have went into that job thinking that he was going to have at his disposal, he ended up not having. He got a magnificent 7 instead.
That João Moutinho incident as well. I remember being at work trying to follow deadline day, and it was said, I think it came on the little yellow line that we had the bid accepted for João Moutinho for 24 million or something. I went back to work thinking we were going to get the deal done, and then looked back on my phone a couple of hours later, and it just completely fell through. So yeah, who knows what he could have done with him there, and a bit more backing generally.
We missed out on Willian around that period as well, right?
No, Willian, he's a snake.
I don't like hearing that one, man.
I don't even blame Levy for that one, though. I don't even know what happened there. Chose a bigger team, to be honest. That's just the annoying fact.
Richer team, fuck that. They're not
bigger. Yeah.
Richer team. Come on, Owen.
Didn't they have Eva working there as well? Oh, come over and have a medical with Eva. All right, we see you.
I just want to throw in, I think, the most controversial opinion that I think is actually serious. But somebody said Ben Davies is our most underrated player.
Oh, for goodness!
I can't see it. I'm sorry, man.
Some of this stuff, you have to wonder when people are like, whether they're trying to troll or they actually do mean some of this stuff, man. Because like Ben Davies, he has a place in the squad, man. Because again, he's been a servant.
Mhm.
He hasn't been awful the whole time he's been at Tottenham. I just feel like for him to be underrated, that's basically making our squad or even our team look a certain level. And I don't think our squad is. If anything, I think he's definitely not the best left back in the team. I mean, he's done a job and he's a squad player, but to call him underrated, I don't know. I'm baffed by like these kind of. I'm completely baffed. I mean,
Yeah, he's not underrated. He might be a little bit underappreciated, but that's as far as I'm willing to go. Because that mistake the other last time.
I mean, it's
Like-
it's unforgivable, man. Unforgivable. Like, you know what? That's. I imagine that could be a reason why he might not even play this week. He might even be in the squad. Yeah, exactly.
On that note, I think it was a good show. There was one topic I wanted to touch, but we should probably touch that next week. But
it's cooking in the kitchen again.
Ndombele and Dembele, man. I think we need Toby there as well for that one, man. That's gonna be a good one.
I was gonna bring that up actually, but I thought I'll hold.
Let's hold till next week. But lads, been a good show. Till next week.
Always. Thank you, my brothers.
Blessings.
Nice.
Bless.
In a bit.